When was the last time that you did something uncomfortable? In today's episode, I want to talk to you and share with you a time that I got uncomfortable. Probably the last time that I can really think about a significant time that I got uncomfortable that changed the trajectory of my life. And through my story, the goal here is to help you understand that discomfort is going to allow you to be comfortable later on. So when was that really significant time that I actually got uncomfortable? Well, part of that really starts my journey coming to South Carolina almost 10 years ago. I can't believe it's been almost 10 years. Right now we're in beautiful downtown Greenville, South Carolina as I record this. It's an amazing weather outside right now. But when I moved here about 10 years ago, I took a job because I was without work for about 3 months. Took a job and I did take a little bit of a pay cut from an hourly perspective or a salary over here. The previous job was hourly, this one was salary. And there's a lot of things that I didn't account for. But here I was making $60,000 a year. Thought that I was making a lot of money and I could barely make ends meet. Now it's because I put myself in this predicament that I took on all these debts and I had student loan debt and everything. And I was very, very uncomfortable and I was trying to find things to do. You know, what could I do that's feasible to still try and live the lifestyle that I'm living, but also have a second job that actually makes a decent amount of money, because here I am making roughly $30 an hour, but then I got to go get a job that maybe makes 10 to 15. Like, that just sucks. I don't know if I want to do that. But finally, I happened to have an opportunity with somebody I had met previously in oil and gas who introduced me to a company in Statesboro, Georgia. And I was able to get a $10,000 a year pay increase. So when I moved there, I said, I'm going to change this. I was living in an apartment by myself. I moved into an apartment and I was 4 years removed from college, and I moved into an apartment with 2 college seniors. So I went from living by myself in a state I had no clue of anybody to moving to another state where I knew nobody. And then I moved in with 2 college roommates, and I've been out of college. Here I am making $70,000 a year now, and I'm living with 2 college roommates. Talk about uncomfortable. But I didn't leave it at that. That was just the start. So I was able to, I believe, decrease my expenses on the apartment utility side by probably about a third, down to a third. So whatever percentage that comes out to, but down 30 to 30% of what I was paying. So I went from paying about $1,100-1,200 a month down to about $500 a month. So maybe a little more like half. But regardless, that was the first step I took. I also had this beautiful truck, beautiful blue and brown or blue and beige Ford F-150 King Ranch 2014. I had bought it brand new. Terrible choice, especially then. I was already paying more on the truck, or almost as much on the truck that I was paying on the apartment that I was at in Greenville. But then when I moved, I was paying more on my truck than I was on the apartment and utilities together, which just made it even more stupid. It was already stupid anyways, but made it more stupid. So what did I do? I got more uncomfortable. I sold that truck and bought a 2012 Ford Fusion hybrid. I mean, talking about going from like an awesome truck, nice, powerful, to like this granny wagon over here. But I did that because I needed to get out of debt. So I went from owing about $36,000 on that truck to I owed $8,000 on the car. I paid the car off in literally a month and a half because I was able to get the money back, and then I had enough coming in that I could just basically rapidly pay that off. And so I made those big drastic changes, which were super uncomfortable, in order to allow me to be more comfortable later. And then now I went from basically having like maybe $100 extra a month to, I think I had like $2,000 to $3,000 extra a month that I was able to keep. And I really need to go back and look at how much it is. But I had, like, let's just call it $3,000 a month that I had to do whatever I wanted with. I was able to start putting down on other debts. And so over that was about a year I lived there, and I moved back to Greenville and I started working again an hourly job, and I was working all this overtime. And so I just saved up money. Well, not saved it, but I put it on debts. And by putting it on the debts, I was able to get myself out of $75,000 of debt within 2 years. So moved, got into a house, and actually when I moved back to Greenville as well, I moved into a 2-bedroom apartment because it was actually cheaper than 1 bedroom. And then I got a roommate, and the roommate paid half my rent in all the utilities. That's how I worked it out. I just told him, hey, it's gonna be this flat rate. And I was able to save even more money. I was never there anyway, so it didn't really matter, but I was uncomfortable for 2 years. And because of that 2 years, I was able to get out of basically all my debts. I had a car payment, and my only debt was one student loan that was 0% interest until I bought a house. And then, was saving by being in a house, paying on a mortgage So I could accumulate wealth versus paying somebody else's rent so they could accumulate wealth. But by getting uncomfortable like that, I was able to be comfortable later on. And so for you, if you are trying to figure out how to get comfortable, you first have to go through a zone of uncomfortableness in order to get more comfortable. So I hope my story was inspiring for you to think about where you're at right now. What are some drastic changes that you can make? And those are questions you need to ask yourself. What things can I do to change? What's something drastic that won't be life-threatening that I could change today that in a year or two from now, which is not a lot of time, will change the trajectory of my life forever? And so you need to go through that zone of uncomfortableness in order to get that comfort. You cannot stay comfortable to be more comfortable. You have to get out of where you're at now. It's already uncomfortable, so why not get a little more uncomfortable so later on you can have the comfort, you can have the security, you can have the peace of mind. So go get more uncomfortable today, so later on, next year, in a decade from now, you can be comfortable.